Week in a conversation, I have the privilege to welcome impeccable author Tonya Penrose. We're going to be talking about her fantastic novel titled Welcome to Charm. But before we get into this interesting video, I just want to remind everyone it's important to subscribe to this YouTube channel because the best way to support the effort, the literary effort, this literary effort is to subscribe, like, and comment every time a video is posted. So if you subscribe, I just want to remind you also, it's important to click the notification bell so that way every time a video is posted, it'll go directly into your portal. So let's get started. Again, my name is Ardain Isma, and I'm here this afternoon with an impeccable author. Her name is Tonya Penrose. We're going to be talking about her fantastic book titled Welcome to Charm. Tonya, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
Very good. But Tonya, just like I do with every author in the conversation, we begin by, talking about who is.
So who is Tonya Penrose? She is someone that came to writing fiction books unwillingly, not thinking that she could sit in a writing chair long enough to pen fiction books, because I had written short stories, both fiction and nonfiction prior to that. So I have embraced fiction novels with a vengeance. I've got 6 books now and a 7 that's in the process. So obviously I came over to the side of writing books and novels.
Wow. So this is who Tonya Penrose really is. And you know what, Tonya, every single writer I have in a conversation always says the same thing.
Really?
Yeah, because the fact that you become a writer without knowing it, quite frankly.
That's interesting.
We know as kids, we love to write, we love to read. And as our experiences with writing grow, so are the appreciations when it comes to your writing. And all of a sudden, you realize that people begin to refer to you as a writer, and if you're lucky enough, a local newspaper might also pick up on this story, So this is how you become a well-known author, such as Tonya Penrose. And your book this afternoon, which is going to be a topic of conversation, Welcome to Charm. Very intriguing title, by the way. A romantic comedy.
Yes.
Okay. And this is the story of, let me get it right, Abby Drake, okay, who's lost on the road. She's traveling, and all of a sudden she has to be rescued. She cannot find her way back home, and that's when Mayor Nash Walker comes in. Okay, and this is where the story unfolds. Could you please, Tonya, explain to the readers how the story develops from here?
Well, the hook that I actually put out there first was, you won't find the enchanted mountain village of Charm on any map, but don't tell Abby Drake it doesn't exist. Because what happens is she's on her way back from a long weekend visiting her sorority sister. She gets a road detour in the North Georgia mountains. And the next thing she knows, she's looped into this little mountain village, quaint and just incredibly beautiful and vibrant. And it's called, she sees a routed sign, it's called Charm, Welcome to Charm. The problem for her is she's lost 3 hours that she can't account for. Everyone there is talking in riddles to her when she tries to find out why Charm isn't on her map and a way to get home. And so she leaves the little downtown and decides that she's going to go back the way she came with the detour, only the detour has disappeared and the road loops her right back in to Charm, to the little downtown area.
And that's when the magical charms
Yes.
begins to develop.
Yes.
And
exactly.
I understand also in the process, she's falling in love at this point and refuses, and perhaps begins to question whether or not she should go back home. What
You're
a very
absolutely
twisted
right.
story.
That's exactly the premise, and the theme is she's been brought there because she was making some choices in her corporate world in her life as a botanist that were not highly principled. And so she's been invited, for lack of a better word, and to spend some time in Charm with a very sage and very cool lady named Gita Greenleaf. And Gita holds the secret of why she's in Charm and what it's going to take for her to be able to have the choice to leave, if she chooses to leave after spending time there. So that is the story. It's Charm is where the impossible is possible and money is not needed. They're operating at a higher elevated place within their lives there. Integrity, principle, things that are core values just to all of us are elevated there. And Abby's called to find out why she's there, where she went off the tracks. And Nash is right there. His appeal to her is immediate. There lies the romance, and it anchors her to want to explore what Charm is all about.
And if I understand, and this is the type of lesson that you want to teach society too, which is the lesson of faith and also the power of love at this point.
Exactly. You got it. That's the theme of the story. Is I wanted to create a story that touched on the unexpected elements in setting and theme. And it was important to me to keep the story a romp, because in order for me to sit in my chair and write, I've got to be entertained by my characters. They've got to be funny, and I've got to be laughing, or I won't come back into the chair. So there's a lot of humor dialogue between her and Nash, and just her trying to get used to the way things operate in Charm, which is atypical from.
Have you read a lot of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who is a cook?
No, but I better.
Okay, because I know you just say that, the kind of writer who would infuse, things, especially in the dialogues, to make you really laugh a lot. And I know, Tonya, you have the skills to do so, and that's precisely why I believe that your followers, once they click into your writing, it's just like when you get someone on the hook. Okay, I got you right here, so you can't break free. This is how you've been trapped in them, because of also you blend what you call that comedy with seriousness.
Yes.
And they love it, and I love it. That's interesting.
Well, I want to, not every one of my books, but a lot of my books, my goal is always to weave messages in there for the reader, should they want to explore their own paths a little more. When they read that last page and close the book, whichever book it is, I would love for them to say, I'm so glad I took some notes. I need to go back and read a few passages. And by the way, I need to call my best friend and tell her she needs to read this book. I want them to have more than a fun story. I want there to be something redeeming that they take away, that's just for them, that they've pulled out, that applies to them. That's my gift to want to give to my reader, is something for them other than.
You know what? As if you knew, this is exactly the kind of person I am. If I read a book, okay, and I love the book, I'm not going to pass it on to a friend because this is my copy. Now, I will encourage you to buy it, and I will make sure that you have it. If it need be, I will buy you a copy. Because when I read a book, I always look for a very important part or section in the book, and I highlight that. So, just like you said, if I want to go back into the story, which it will make very easy for me, or easier for me, to go back to those interesting passages. So I can't really give it to a friend. You have to buy a copy. I will make sure that you do so. This is the kind of person I am. Maybe because I'm a writer, but I think it's important when you have a copy of the book, a book that you really love, you should keep that copy.
You know what? I agree with you 100% because you're imprinting on it as you're reading it anyway. Mm-hmm. I agree.
Now, let me ask you a question, Tonya. Okay. How did you come to develop such a wonderful passion for writing this multi-genre in literature?
That's a good question, and I'm going to answer it honestly, and you're probably going to laugh, and it's okay. And so it's okay for your audience to laugh. Okay. When I was about 6 years old, I decided I was going to write my first book and illustrate it. So I got construction paper, okay, and I did drawings, and I did my short little stories with 2 words on a page because I wasn't that good at writing. And judging by my parents' expression and questions about my illustrations, I knew an artist I would never be, but they seemed to like the words. So from that point, I decided I could write books, but I could not illustrate anything. So that was where it actually began, was at that point in time.
Okay. Now, because I know most children growing up, and especially if the envy of becoming a writer kicks in, you want to read more. And usually you have a specific group of authors, or maybe one person who keeps inspiring you to become such an impeccable writer. Did you have that impact on you? Did you have some specific or particular writers that you were interested in?
As an adult, in this time, not when I was a child, you're asking, correct?
So when you were a child, let's say when you were in elementary or middle school, for example.
I loved Nancy Drew books. Okay. So as a result, I write cozy mysteries. Okay. Only my sleuths are in their 50s and they're cousins and they're hilarious. Okay. But they're still the mysteries. I loved Nancy Drew. I'm going to age myself when I say I read Betty Cavana. My daughter was able to find copies of Betty Cavana's books and gifted them to me for Christmas. But nobody please look up when she published, because I swear I'm not that old. But anyway, I love Betty Cavana, her books.
Okay. So as you get older, did you have other writers, who influenced your writing?
When I got into, my adult years, I went toward nonfiction for learning. And even to this day, I gravitate toward Eckhart Tolle, Vernon Howard, books that Ruth Montgomery wrote back in the 80s, an author that is long gone, but his book was, he was Stuart Edward White, and the book was The Unobstructed Universe. So those books, those authors set me off on that enlightened path of looking at esoterics and looking at different ways of how we're in the world and what is our path, why are we here, where's our joy. And I brought all of that into my stories. Okay. I love Rex Stout. He writes the greatest dialogue in Nero Wolfe. I love his dialogue. And of course, the romance writers of the time.
Okay.
That, it's really me with the group that collective group that I told you. I lean more into those writers for me to grow and to be a better writer. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Let me ask you a question. Do you find it very difficult to share your writing with another person, at least the first person you will share that story after you conceive a manuscript? How was always the feeling?
I have never been asked that question. That is really an amazing question for me. How do I feel about sharing what I've written? Okay, here's my answer. I have to trust the person that I let read the manuscript before I submit it out to the publishers. And there's two people that I go to with my manuscripts. Mm-hmm. My daughter being one, because she's brutally honest and she's also gifted at evaluating my work. And then my sorority sister from college, who's also an author, I let her read the manuscript. But the stories, believe it or not, the stories are given to me. They just come in and I write them. So I don't have that lens, that critical lens, because I don't feel like I own the story myself, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. I'm just grateful that I have the story, that I got to write it, and I want to take it out, and hopefully other people, the readers out there, will love the stories and tell 5 friends. So I don't have that big fear of exposure, of rejection. I'm just like, it's really not mine. It was a gift to me. So I don't have the attachment. That's the word. I'm not that attached to the outcome. I just trust the process. I trust the process.
So now, listen, just because you just say that, do you think, Tonya, sometimes your characters talk to you?
Always. Oh, yes. I'm taking dictation. I'm literally, Ardain, I'm taking dictation. They're talking. I'm there in the scene with them. I'm hanging out and I'm writing what they say. Sometimes I don't like what they say, but I write it because I know I better, Isn't
that something? You know what? A friend of mine told me once, writers sometimes can be ruthless. And I said, how so? He said, well, they create a world with beautiful trees, a universe, wonderful people, villain also. And at the end of the day, they close the chapter and then they move on to a next story. So do you think it's a fair assertion when it comes to writers? Are they really truly ruthless?
I haven't known any that I would characterize as that. When I end a story, I was asked recently in an interview, are you still in touch with your characters? And I thought, well, if I answer this honestly, they may want to put me in for a psychiatric evaluation. but the truth is, I'm always in touch with them if I want to be. They're there, they're there, ready to make a series out of every book I write. Could we be a series, I don't have, when I close that chapter, when I close that book, it's the relationship continues. It's just on pause, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, it's just on pause. And I haven't interacted with authors that felt that way. And if I did, I would invite them to maybe reevaluate that feeling a little bit and come at writing from a more grateful place, a more appreciative place.
Wonderful. So this is something I always do, Tonya. In the conversation, at some point we stop talking about literature and we switch to something cozier. Okay, because I know we're human. Okay, we're not superheroes.
No.
So if I were to ask you, because I know you're a mom, I'm assuming you love to cook. What is your favorite cooking?
What is my favorite cooking? What do I enjoy cooking the most?
Correct.
That would be what I enjoy eating the most, dessert.
Really? So which one?
I don't have a favorite. I like anything that has a sweet taste to it. I have never met oh yes, that's not true. I was going to say, I've never met a dessert that I don't like, but egg custard would not be, not going to touch that one.
Okay, so now, but what about a cuisine? Your favorite cuisine?
See, you already know I'm not good at loyalty when it comes
to
genres.
I know.
and you're trying to get me to be loyal to something today for you, aren't you? I will be loyal to Italian.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any particular reason
But
why?
tomorrow it'll be Japanese, just so you know.
Ah, okay. So the loyalty always short-lived, right?
It is very short.
Okay.
You
I got
figured
you.
me out way too fast.
Okay. So I know you already told me, actually share with the audience your favorite authors. Oof, when you were younger, and then when you were an adult. So now, what about music? Is there any particular music growing up that you were fascinated about?
I'm really embracing that I don't even have a loyalty to a particular genre of music.
Really?
I love, one of my favorite songs is Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, and yet I would love Steve Halpern's Spectrum Suite. A new composer that is a friend of mine who lives in Madrid is David Bezo.
Okay.
And he and I have a project that we're considering working on, and his music is absolutely inspiring for me to listen to.
Okay.
I love David Bezo's music.
What kind of music is he?
He too is not loyal to a genre. Maybe that's why I connected so well to him.
I got you.
Yeah. He's a composer. He's a producer. He has all different genres his music has gone to. He's amazing. But I like classic rock because that's what I grew up with.
Okay.
I like some classical. Country and Western is probably not going to be a genre that you'll get me to pick anything out of. But yeah,
Okay,
I can dismiss that one.
All right. Now, Tonya, listen, because I know you're multi-genre writer. But how about something like historical fiction? How do you see yourself as an historical fiction writer? Is that a particular genre that you would like to at least explore someday?
No, I don't feel going back for me is my path. And yet I applaud the people the authors that write historical fiction because there's so much research that goes into it.
Right.
And it's a labor of love for authors that I know that write historical fiction.
Right.
But I tend to write in the present moment and maybe flirt a little bit with future, but I don't see me going to the past. But then again, like I shared, my stories are given to me. Now that I've said that, watch me get a nudge to go write something from the Revolutionary War. And I will come back to you and say, you did this to me. You caused
this. I hope so. I know. I know if when you set your mind to something, you'll get it through. And I'm pretty sure your readers will ultimately, head over heel in love with it too. So. Now, how about something like a memoir? Because I know you said you write nonfiction too. So,
I looked at memoir about 15 years ago. One of my author friends drugged me into a course, a college course on memoir and essay, and I came out of there saying, I'm really glad I took it, and I'm really clear I probably am not going to be the one to write that. It's funny that you asked me that because I was asked that question 2 days ago. Now I've got to pay attention to it. Yes, I have to pay attention to it so that you've asked that. I'm still going to say no to historical, but I will think about memoir.
Okay.
If I had something memorable to share, that's
exactly. And I'm sure you have plenty. Now, since we're running down close to the end of our conversation, there's something I want to ask you, Tonya. I know you are such an impeccable author. Now, is there any, because I know at the beginning also, you said you have a current project. You're working right now on another book. Can you give us like a little sneak preview of what the book is about?
What is coming out in July? Is we're in cover design right now, is the third cozy in my Shell Isle mystery series. And this one is Murder by Numbers. And the two sleuths are at it again. They're zany as they can be. Wow. And in this book, Betsy Ross, who is one of the sleuths, has, we're including her recipes, which is a bonus, but I'm not sure I'd call it a bonus because everything with her is highly spiced. One of the recipes is Grim Reaper Mexican salad. That's the warning right there. But
Okay.
the honey cake recipe that gets the murderer confessing, that recipe's in there. They
Wow.
use a honey cake, a special honey cake that gets a confession every time out of the one that they find did the murder. So Murder by Numbers is going to be out in July. Yes.
And you know what?
Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking.
In July, okay?
Yes.
Great. Now, my last question. Really, it's unfortunate that a beautiful conversation, has to come to an end. But Tonya, listen, just before you go, is there any lesson you would want to give to a writer who would probably want to be a multi-genre author just like you are? What lesson would you?
For me, I would say first, you're blessed with the creative gift to want to write. It begins right there with that blessing and the acknowledging of that blessing. And there are tons of do's and don'ts out there that we get lavished with by the experts and by other writers wanting to help us that are further along their writing journey than we are. And I would say to a new writer, take what you like and leave the rest. Take what advice that's given to you that sits right with you and use it. But in the end, it's really about getting into the writing chair, telling your mind to hush so that the story can flow to you, and ignore the editor and the critic in you as you're writing. And when you write the last chapter and you write the end, then invite the editor and your critic to come back and go back into the story with you. And that's probably the best advice that I could give them, is to suspend judgment while you're writing. Just let the story come and enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride.
That's interesting. What a beautiful closing note. And on this beautiful note, and I just want to say it's been more than a pleasure to have author Tonya Penrose this afternoon in the conversation.
Thank you so much. It's been my honor. It's been my honor.